welcome back. I'm Taryn, abstract artist living in the Bay Area, and we have...
Hello there, my name is Sieglinde. I'm also an abstract artist living in the Bay Area, and welcome to another episode of Art Sparks with Taryn and Sieglinde. And Taryn, who's our fabulous guest today?
It's a fabulous person, and I know him from a long time ago, and his name is George Rivera. So if you're in the area, you must know him, okay? Yes. So, but I'm going to talk about a little bit about him, okay? So George Rivera is a former Museum of Art exhibit director and the senior curator of the Taryn Museum of Art in Santa Clara. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful museum. Okay, so he's been there from the 1985 to 2013, and then he went to be, and prior to that, he was exhibit director and curator of the San Jose Art League. He has curated around 375 shows.
Wow.
I know. And there are national, international, small, big collaborations all over, all right? And so, yes, and he, besides that, okay, so he is also part of the faculty instructor in the Museum College in Santa Clara. And besides that, and what I should have started first is that he's an amazing artist. So, welcome, George.
Welcome, George.
Thank you both very much. Honored to be here.
Well, we're so excited to have you. And today, Taryn did an awesome job explaining all your roles. But today, we want to talk to you as the amazing, fabulous artist and art educator that you are. And speaking of you being an artist, invite us, please, to your early beginnings. When did you know you were going to be an artist? Or how did you decide, I'm George Rivera and I'm an artist?
Be happy to. And I think there are probably a couple of versions or strong influences, no question. And I would say for me, my earliest recollections, were drawing. It was something that my friends and I would do. It was cheap. If you had a pencil and crayons, piece of paper, and we enjoyed copying comic books and the comics in the newspaper, or watching Disney movies, things like this. Just it was an enjoyable way of spending hours and hours, and you wouldn't notice that you would get better. And when your parents and adults would say, "Oh, you seem to have some talent here," Manuel, your son, he could be an artist someday. That type of praise coming from adults meant a lot. Now, that takes me to my father, of course, and I've shared this before with people. Some of my earliest memories with my dad coming home from his day job, working in the trades, and I knew how hard he worked. And he'd come sit next to me, before dinner, and I might be just drawing, doodling. And, he'd sit and he'd look at what I was doing. Just that attention, that my dad was paying to me, to me meant a lot. And then I especially loved it when he would pick up paper and maybe draw something. And I told him many, years later as an adult, I said, "Dad, when you would draw, I know to you it was nothing, maybe just a sketch of a horse or something. But to me, it was magic. I wanted to be just like you, and because you weren't looking at anything there. The TV wasn't on, and back in those days we had maybe one channel. But I would wonder, how does he do that? And after you would draw, we'd have dinner. I go back in my room and I try to copy exactly what you did. And you go into school, and I have to admit, maybe I wasn't, the brightest bulb in class amongst all the students, Sieglinde. I from what I heard from your video, you were a very sharp student. Well, I was the other end, so, but I could draw. And my teacher would come by and say, "Okay, we're going to have class projects, and, this is the teams. And George, you're going to be the artist on this." And so it could be anything. It could be Christopher Columbus's 3 ships coming to America. It could be anything. And I was the one who drew it, or I'd cut it out or color it in, and we put it on display. So the teachers made sure that everybody played a part in solving something. And that was my part. And what the teacher understood was that by me being involved, invested in drawing the costumes and the ships just right, or anything, I was learning a different way. But I was learning, and I was learning it in a very deep manner. Because then I would ask questions. Why would people wear that? How come this looks like this? And I was always asking questions. Unfortunately, my teachers, I was a little bit of a disruption, I'm sure, in class, but all through grammar school, whenever parent-teacher meetings, they'd always tell my parents, your son has this ability to draw and color. He might have a career. We would encourage you to encourage him. And the teachers now and then would take a drawing I did and put it in the hallway. I wasn't at that age a star athlete. I was a tiny little guy. I mean, I looked like Marty the Martian, this big head with a helmet and a tiny little body and just talking all the time. So my drawings gave me a sense of fitting in and feeling a sense of I have something to bring.
That's so beautiful. What smart teachers to engage you in learning in a way that fit you best and that made you feel good, that made you be less disruptive, and that made you fit in. That's just brilliant.
I don't know if it helped. I had to sit in the corner on many occasions, staring at the wall. I enjoyed, I think, making other people laugh in class. But the other thing, I'll be honest with both of you, was that the girls in class noticed my drawings. And I couldn't help it. I always loved the cute girls in class. And so I would draw something for them. And I thought, wow, didn't have to buy anything, just draw a little something. So, that also encouraged my little, myself.
So, but when you decided to be an artist, so that's when you said, okay, I'm doing it, but that's when you decided to be an artist, and from that, how do you move forward?
Yeah, no, and again, I think both of you alluded to my wonderful teachers, and I think ultimately that really, when I looked at what was I going to do in life, and the dreams of being an artist. And back in those days, your options were, be an illustrator, to be a commercial artist, maybe a comic book artist. Of course, my friends said, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could draw for comic books? I mean, we had no idea about the business. We had no idea about the competitive nature, that we'd probably have to move to New York City, things like that. But, right in front of me was real life, was watching the impact that a teacher was having on me. And ultimately I remembered that. But so, they encouraged the art. So all through, grade school, junior high, high school, community college, I took the path because art was what I loved, what I enjoyed. It just came natural to me. It was always a part of me. So in a way, Sieglinde, as you was mentioning when you were talking about your experience, how art came kind of like, and life came calling to you, and it just, and so here I am doing the art, and I'm just thinking, okay, this is what I do naturally. I can do this as a career, as a job, as a major in college. Is that okay? Because I've always done this. And people say, absolutely, but how are you going to make a living? What are you going to do, George? I go, well, I love drawing, I love painting. What do you call the artists who do these covers? And like Treasure Island. Well, that's N.C. Wyeth. He's a great American artist. Did he get paid for that? Well, yes. You can make money doing that. So what is that? What job? That's an illustrator or a commercial artist. Okay, maybe I'd like to do that. Maybe that sounds like a good thing. So that was how I channeled, when I went from community college, and then when I transferred to San Jose State University, my major was to be an illustrator, and what I thought was commercial artist, but by then they changed the term to graphic designer. And so I thought, well, I'll become a graphic designer focusing as an illustrator. And drawing by this stage had come fairly easily for me. I had been practicing for so long and being guided by wonderful teachers. And so I really thought I was going to go into the illustration field. But as soon as I got to San Jose State University, things changed. And I wanted to try some other things. I wanted to explore, photography. I wanted to explore sculpture. I wanted to explore things that weren't realistic, because I had pretty much been a realist, ever since I was a kid. But this whole realm and world about, abstract and conceptual, site specifics, art, installation, performance art. It blew my mind of the things I didn't know growing up in a very small community. It was maybe the first time a kid goes to Disneyland and just like, wow, I can't believe, this is amazing. And I was surrounded by phenomenal teachers and an extraordinary amount of talented students in the same boat as me. And it was so infectious. I mean, and I'm a passionate person by nature. And I was just, my eyes just zipping back and forth. I can't believe this. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is my niche in life. Yes, these people understand me. And I love it. And they were good. And I'm glad that I wasn't too devastated by the sheer level of extraordinary talent. If I had been intimidated by that, that might have affected my ability to fully learn and embrace what I was about to experience.
Well, but I think your passionate nature took over. There was no room to be intimidated, and we love how passionate you are. That's why we love having you as our guest. So, but you just mentioned a whole other realm of fine art that you discovered at San Jose State University, right? So you as a fine artist, and we see some of your work behind you, which is such a treat for us and for our viewers. But tell us a little bit about your work itself. Like, is there something through your work that you're trying to share with the viewer, some kind of message?
Yes.
Or what would you like them to take away from your work?
No, I'm really glad you brought that up. Yes. And it was at San Jose State where I had a number of phenomenal professors. One in particular, Professor John DeVincenzi, who spent an extraordinary amount of time with me, taking this rough diamond and slowly polishing little by little. And I could be difficult. I could be a challenge. I was defensive. And yet he and all the other professors saw something in me. And because I wasn't afraid to work, and whatever it took. And that was a trait I learned from my father. Whatever it is that I do in life, to give it everything I had, to leave nothing left in the tank at the end of the night, to give it my all, no matter what. Wow. And it was these professors that kind of explained to me that if you studied art history, George, which was very important, at that point then I began my journey into the love of art history, which to me is equal with the art making. It just all goes hand in hand. I learned a couple of key points from my key professor because he was involved in the community. He worked on art commissions. He served on a number of boards. He was doing his own artwork. He was doing commissions. He was teaching graduate, undergraduate students. He was a leader in the community. And I was trying to follow his path. And here I was, a very young teenager. And I just told him once, I can't keep up with you. How do you do this? And he's looking at me, I go, all right, I'll be humble. I want to be like you. I really respect what you're doing, and I would like to do what you're doing. How do you do it? And he goes, George, I watch you, and I'm proud of you. And I'm glad you're choosing this path. But I'm watching you present 7 different sides of yourself or your personality to these different directions. Instead of trying to fit in and be 7 different versions of yourself, be one. Be George, be yourself, and all these things. And it won't seem like it's so hard then, because you're being yourself in everything. All of this is life, George. Art, history, production, your community, your family, it's all one. And the sooner you understand that, I think you might find that you're capable of so much more, instead of trying to remember who you were at that commission meeting, who you were. Yeah. Don't worry about trying to make everybody happy and showing them what you think they want. Be yourself. That helped me. That was just great advice coming from him. And as far as art, he said, if you live a long life, now that we're talking art history, George, if you look at artists who've had a long life, take Rembrandt and others of that caliber, not the great geniuses that died in the 20s or 30s, but the ones who lived a full long life, you'll see that every decade or so, different aspects of their works were emphasized and different things were important. You're at a young phase, George, where learning technique and learning everything about the tools and how you use those tools and different approaches in life are very important. And you're excited by the fact that you're able now to do this. What's lacking in your work, George, at this point is some sort of deep life idea. You're not saying anything at this stage. You're showing us great technique. You could be a great illustrator, George. I go, I already told you, I want to be a painter. I want to be, I'm not disparaging illustrators, but for me, I want something more. And he goes, that will take time. You're going to have to live life. You're going to have to experience things so that when you talk about it, you can talk about it not like a reporter looking at a situation, taking a picture of this tragic thing in life, and it's on the newspapers and we're all terrified. But you can talk about it from a point of personal reference. So when somebody says, when I look at your work, George, what's your connection to it? What's it mean to you? Or are you just showing us a well-illustrated, beautifully painted image of something that's tragic? What's your connection? And I told him, I'm still young, and the experiences that I went through in my youth, especially with racism, I haven't figured out how to say anything about it yet. And in fact, I don't even want to open those doors. I get too angry, too upset. I don't know how to address those emotions yet. As an individual and as an artist, I don't want to share that. I don't want to share that weakness with the public because I don't even know who I am yet. So he said, as you grow older and mature, your techniques and all your interests will continue to grow, and you will start narrowing down possibly some of those interests, and you will focus on something. And little by little, more of yourself and your experience and what you see in life. And that's what I loved about what both of you have said. The things that we've seen in life that we now put through our work. But it's not just our story. I like to leave the work where somebody looks at it and they haven't read my statement yet, but they look at my work and they go, you know what, I feel that. I know this, or this makes me uncomfortable. I can't look at it. I can't deal with it. I'm grateful when people feel something rather than just, well done, great technique, but what's for lunch? I want them to question, and then maybe they'll read my statement next and they go, oh, he's talking about that issue. Well, what does he know about that issue? What's his connection to that? And I was lucky as a young artist when I would have an exhibition, and there would always be a few very experienced old souls that pull me aside and say, young man, this is very impressive. Congratulations. But can you tell us what it's all about? What's your connection to it? And I would start telling them what it was about, as if it was an illustration. And they go, no, we get that, but what is your connection? Do you know these people? Are you related? Are you familiar with, did you live in this situation? And I said, well, I really don't have a connection other than as a human being. I just feel this concern when I see this. So they go, so you're kind of like a photojournalist, not to put down photojournalism, but you're just kind of walking around seeing things that affect you as a human being, and you're making the time to share that with us. But what we want to know is, how do you feel? Is this a secret? Are you afraid to tell us? And so when you see my work now, and the work that I've been producing probably for the past 25, 30 years, a lot of the work is very dark visually. Mm-hmm. The colors, composition, everything, the subject matter, very dark. But the George Rivera statement in the work is that there is always the presence of a strong light within the work. And the light, bottom line for me, represents hope and faith. Now, hope doesn't always mean it's going to be a happy ending, but hope is what it is. It's not just total despair. And, I had this experience once when my work was being presented. And during the reception, I'm meeting people, wonderful people, asking me great questions. And I noticed this one lady, she just was very patient and polite, and she came up to me and she wanted to know, what do these works mean? They're so dark. And yes, they're dark, but they're full of light. And she goes, young man, I don't see the light. And I paused and I said, well, here's another thing. My works, maybe like many abstract works, are almost as if you're looking into the mirror. And Sieglinde, I think you and Taryn shared this before. It's what we experience in life, the experiences we bring, is what we see in some other work or what we see as possible solutions for ourselves. And I said, it's full of light. Look at it. And we're standing there together. I told other people, give me a few moments. I want to spend time with her. I don't want to embarrass her in front of other people. And I said, you know what? Thank you for asking me this question. She goes, you're the artist. I go, yes. I'm just the curator. I painted this. This is why I'm telling you it's about hope. And she goes, so why is it so dark? I go, if I wanted to make it about ultimate despair and no hope, I have the technical ability to make it all dark, to make it appear as if the candle light is blown out. I could use so many metaphors and symbologies that will show you it's basically the Titanic. This is hopeless. But you see what I did here and here, how I move you around, and then that light. And she's like, yes. I go, that's hope.
George, I am rarely speechless, but I am speechless now. And I hope our viewers will rewind this last piece of this interview, because everything you said is so profound. From the identity, when you're trying to do many different things, and in the end, what matters is there's only one George. There's only one Taryn. There's only one Sieglinde. How do you channel it in an honest, authentic way in one thing and be true to yourself? And then your honesty in saying, I hadn't lived enough life to be profound with my message, and instead of faking it, I was owning it. Like, I am a young artist. I am very skilled in my technique. That is what I bring you today. And yes, I have these issues that I want to talk about, but not quite yet. I'm going to wait. And then your connection with art history. And now I'm going to make a total fool of myself. But you mentioned Rembrandt. Isn't that an old master's element as well, to have it more dark, but then have this light come in? And it's actually really hard to do. So it's like amazing when you can do that.
Well, thank you very much, Sieglinde. The Baroque period of painting is, for me, one of the most powerful. I mean, it was meant to be dramatic. It had to be extraordinary, because it had to speak to the common people. And as we know, during the Baroque period, what was going on with the churches in Europe, the division of of the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation, and as people were leaving the Catholic Church in droves. What was going on in the world at that time? The Black Plague and everything else, the wars. People would, what's going on? This. I don't understand this. We don't see the light. The Renaissance was significant in showing man in control of his destiny, taking God's gifts, but now humanism was a main theme. And the great masters of the Renaissance gave us phenomenal works that drew us to awe when we looked at the Sistine Chapel. Well, of course, if I was a commoner back then, I would never have seen it, but we were aware of the great sculptures and art. But at some point, I think maybe there could be a little bit of skepticism kicking in for just the common folk wondering, life is pretty bad, and this plague is taking everybody. Let's look at some other possibilities, some other solutions. In the Baroque period, it was a mastermind approach. It was a mastermind campaign by the church to, we need to get the best of the very best artists, and we need to bring a wow factor. We need to knock people's socks off. We need to make them rethink everything about the very existence of life and spirituality. And let's bring in Bernini. Let's bring in that wild card Caravaggio. Yes, he's a pain, he's trouble, but my God, his work moves people to their spiritual core. They stop dead in their tracks and they're in awe. And then you have opera being born during the Baroque. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the impact of the significance of Baroque through Europe. And if I had seen or heard, if I had walked into one of these cathedrals and you hear, Gregorian chants or other things, and I'm looking at the artwork and I would feel so small, and my God, this is the presence of something greater than I could ever be. The power of art to do that. That was an amazing time. And, I think of great filmmakers, Martin Scorsese, for one, and he would talk about the Baroque period, and especially Caravaggio's use of tenebrism, of almost stage-like dramatic lighting. And it wasn't chiaroscuro, it wasn't Leonardo's three-dimensional kind of sense of spatial depth. It was stage lighting at its very best, and it was cinematography. It was the beginning of cinematography, and and I saw that, and I embraced it in my work of cutting to the chase, trying to simplify things so that people couldn't identify maybe with the clothing or the costume. I didn't want people to look at my paintings and say, okay, that's a 2021 period. You can tell by the clothing and everything. I wanted it to be more kind of a little bit more vague, without being too neoclassical romantic. And, I praise a lot of my colleagues out there who are phenomenal. My God, if some of these painters had lived in the Baroque period, they would have surpassed the old masters. The techniques employed by men and women artists throughout the world it's just phenomenal. The realism is just off the charts. But, if it wasn't for the Renaissance and the Baroque artists, they're the ones who showed us the way. And that was 500, 600, 700 years ago. They showed us. And now, and I love what you both said before, now that they've shown us the way, where do we take it next? It's up to us, the new generation. And I love blues music. And the old blues singers are saying, that's great that you want to sound like us, but young people, take it to the next level. We took it from Robert Johnson. We took it from Son House, and we took it another level. Now, you guys, take it another level. Keep pushing it. Keep making it alive. Keep it valid, not just something in the past. So yes, I am using very Baroque, Caravaggio, Artemisia techniques, but I want the images, and I'm trying to bring a contemporary feel to it. But it's hard. As you can imagine, it's a challenge.
after hearing you, all right, it is very clear your passion for art and your passion for teaching before your bell, when having your teachers, and you explained the viewer that was looking at your paintings. I was going to ask you about that, about what was your passion about teaching, but we just saw it.
I know, I was going to say the same thing. You know, we don't even have to tell anybody how passionate you are about teaching. You're sharing it with us. That was cool.
You know, it just, when all those things that my teachers taught me, when I am trying to help my students and I'm saying something, I get that moment like, whoa, wait a minute. Now I understand what my teachers were trying to tell me, 35, 40 years ago. Now I get it. I faked it for a while, but now I get it. And to share that with others. Oh, it's just, yeah, I mean, you're both teachers, you know what I mean. I love teaching. It's a challenge, and I keep reinventing every semester. I try to keep it fresh. I try to bring more validity, more current events, movies, music the young kids listen to. And so, they'll say, I'll ask them, what are you listening to? They go, I'm sorry. I go, no, I'm not complaining. What are you listening to? Well, I don't think you really know. Well, I don't, but I heard the rhythm, I heard the beat. It's in a certain time sequence, isn't it? And I go, what? I go, that actually comes from an earlier hip hop and rap, but that actually comes from an earlier blues kind of, or jazz, maybe blue, Dave Brubeck's kind of Take 5 sequence. You ever hear that time? Or Miles Davis? And I go, this timing of music goes all the way back to Baroque, all the way back to the Renaissance. And I said, I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to tell you that the music you enjoy, that pulse, that beat, that comes from a great tradition. And whoever wrote this understands music. This is why you're able to groove to it. Some music is meant for slow dancing and relaxing. Others, toe tapping, you get up and it makes you want to dance. You can't help yourself. It's understanding.
Yes.
Music and visual art is the same way. When we do what we do, when we take those visual elements of art and we apply them to basic principles of design, and we know how to distort that, we can make people feel things deeply. And I know some people don't like it. They'll say, it's when I look at your painting too long, it's like it's unlocking a door inside of me, and I don't like that. I don't want you going there. That's off limits. So, and I go, look, I don't have any mind reading abilities at all. I've opened my door. That's my visual diary. You can crush me right now so easily if you knew the right words. And so
You opened your own door to invite people to open their own door. And that's kind of resonates what Pamela Walsh from the Pamela Walsh Gallery in Palo Alto shared with us and said, art is a journey into self-discovery. And as artists and gallerists, we're just facilitators, but in the end, it's everybody's own journey.
And it's what you both have said time and time again. It is our journey. And Taryn, I go back to something you said not too long ago, the realization that here's one way of putting it. I and the other are one. We are all connected. And these connections are on so many various levels. As life, as you both have so articulately expressed before, life is on so many levels. It's not just black and white. The gray levels are just so subtle. And there's something, if people are willing to trust the art. And, in another time as we will talk as a art juror or as a curator, when we look at work, we're looking for that. We're looking for that honesty. And so the conversations that I always had with artists, it was never to try to trip them up or to catch up. I knew it wasn't that deep. The mere fact that I was asking these questions is that you had already pulled me into the porthole, and I'm on this wonderful journey, and I'm all about just sharing this truth with you, or just sensing that awareness, that enlightenment, maybe that little clue about life that will ultimately maybe benefit me also, to help unlock another door, something I can't get past, but another human being might be able to.
On that note, George, we just want to thank you for being here. And we will invite you again to be our guest, because you have a wealth of wisdom and stories to share. And we wouldn't want to hold back for our audience. So thank you so much, George. And to all of you, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe. This really helps us in the algorithms, and share with anybody who would benefit from everything profound that George shared with us today. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.